Hey guys, how's it going? This is ThePyroGunner, and a while back, I think it was basically 2 years ago now, I made a video talking about what things would make the next Infamous game a good game. And those were just sort of basic things on how the game was made, and not about the content of the game, of what it would actually be about and what would be in it. So now, finally, this is the video about the content of the game and what I think would be cool to be in it, and my idea for the story and powers of the game and whatnot if I were the one in control of making it. Also, a lot of this is based on what I think is most likely to be in the next game because of what Sucker Punch has been teasing about it already in Second Son. And I want to thank my friend Ian and my friend Alex. They both have theories and whatnot that have to do with what I think is going to be in the next game. And as their theories and whatnot come up, I will talk about it in the video. There are links in the description to their videos, but you could just watch them once I mention them. And that thumbnail that you saw for the video that you're also seeing right now, I made that art to represent my idea for the next game's story. And I will explain everything in it in this video, so just hold your horses. Okay, so Sucker Punch's next game. I am certain that it will be an Infamous game. Not only that, but it will be a sequel to Second Son. And here is why. When you play Paper Trail, you get this comic, and at the end, they show Celia basically taking over the DUP and planning to use them to fight the US military, or most likely, I think, any normal people who are not okay with conduits. And if you want to learn more about this whole thing, go watch Ian's video that he made about it. He talks about it for like 40 minutes, I think, and really tells you everything about this comic thing. And I really want to thank him for playing Paper Trail all the way through, because I didn't, because I found it to be boring and I hated going on the website. And I was really sick of Second Son at that point. I just hated the story. But anyways, yeah, thank you to Ian for actually going through the pain of doing all those like puzzles on the website to get that information. The next reason I think Sucker Punch's next game is a Second Son sequel is that in Second Son, they tease Delsin going to Curtain K. They do this obviously at the ending of the game. In both endings, Delsin says that he's going to go to Curtain K and free the conduits there. And in the final audio log, it also teases Delsin going to Curtain K.
You ever wonder how many powers you can hold? Augustine does. She doesn't like the idea of you ever finding your way to Curtain K. We've got a lot of different conduits there, not just the ones you've seen here in Seattle. Glass, wire, paper. Man, it's a long, strange list. Imagine what could happen if you came to Curtain K. Imagine if you got all those powers. What would you become? Man, that scares me. I bet it terrifies Augustine.
Next thing is Zeke. Zeke is in Second Son. He's barely in it. He's only in a piece of the game that certain people got to play, which is Cole's Legacy, if you didn't know, but he is in the game, and they clearly tease Zeke and Delsin working together in the future.
Either way, don't be surprised if you start seeing all this stuff out on the interwebs. I'll be in touch. And hey, Cole would be proud.
Cool. Thanks. Talk to you later, Zeke.
Also, something that I think is just really strange is Zeke is in the credits with the main cast of characters, when yet he's barely in the game. He's only in a part of the game that certain people got to play, and he only has like 3 pieces of dialogue in the entire game. His role in the game is so minor that I think the only reason they put him in the credits with those other major characters is because he must be a major character in the next game. And the last reason is that Sucker Punch called Second Son an origin story. I don't know why you would call something an origin story unless there was a not origin part of the story. Like there was a part after the origin. So that's why I think Sucker Punch's next game that they are currently working on is a sequel to Infamous Second Son. Maybe they do want to go and make some new IP, but I think that they were clearly planning on making a sequel to Second Son, and if they did end Infamous with Second Son, that would just be so disappointing. Like, why end the franchise with its worst game? Like, seriously, go out on a high note. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, this game might be revealed at PlayStation Experience, which happens in about a month from when I'm uploading this. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's not announced at PlayStation Experience, because look at how many games were announced at PlayStation Experience last year, like big AAA games. Yeah, not that many, if any. And I think Sony might want to focus on showing off Horizon Zero Dawn at PSX, which comes out in like 3 months after it or something. So I think it's most likely that Second Son sequel will be revealed at E3 2017. But I made this video now before PSX just in case they do reveal it there. And I am hopeful for this game. I think it can be better than Second Son because I think the main reason Second Son was not as good as it should have been was they focused so much of their time on making graphics and pretty particle effects and all of that, and then they had to make the actual game, but then they ran out of time, so the story was super short. You only got 3.5 powers, and everything just felt rushed. So before talking about my idea for the Second Son sequel's story, I want to talk about some possible ideas that are not going to be in mine. The first one is Fetch being the protagonist. Why would this be? Well, because Fetch is a better character than Delsin, and I think a lot of fans share that opinion. People loved Fetch in First Light, and Delsin just didn't really click with everybody. But I think Fetch will not be the protagonist of the game because it wouldn't work out for gameplay. She does not have the power to absorb other conduits' powers. And for gameplay, that would limit you to only Neon Forever, which we got basically the full extent of her Neon power in First Light. So I don't think Fetch will be the main character because of her powers, and they can't really go anywhere from it. Okay, next possibility is the game taking place in Australia. In Second Son, they mention that the DUP have a base in Australia, and it might actually be sort of likely that this game will take place in Australia, but it's not in my idea because I think Infamous sort of works best being set in the United States, and it has already, and I feel like there's story themes already going on with the US government and the US military that would just be thrown away if they moved it to some different country. Okay, the next very popular fan request, which I am so sick of hearing by now, is Cole being resurrected by the lightning at the end of Infamous 2's good ending. Oh my god, would I hate that. And I also do not think Sucker Punch is going to do it. Okay, why is this stupid? First off, that lightning bolt at the end of Infamous 2's good ending is not there to mean that Cole gets resurrected by it. It's just there to be a cliffhanger and say, what next? We don't know. That's why it's in the shape of a question mark. That's the point of it. It's not that Cole gets resurrected. And if Cole was resurrected, then there would be so much less meaning to his death, which was meaningful and important. And him getting resurrected by the lightning, it would be just so cheap and it wouldn't make sense. It would be so fan servicey and like have no purpose for the story other than, oh my god, we like Cole, let's have Cole back. And I don't even think Cole's dead body, which at that point had probably been dead for about a week, would even get revived by lightning or anything at all. Cole was killed by the RFI, which how it kills conduits has to do with the conduit gene, meaning Cole's conduit gene would have been destroyed or something in the first place. So him being resurrected by the lightning makes absolutely no sense. His body would be too dead and decaying by then, like inner parts of his brain and everything, muscles, bones, and anyways, Cole coming back to life by lightning makes no sense. And one more thing that will not be in my story idea is Reggie coming back to life. For similar reasons that Cole came back to life, except for with this one, I think it actually is likely that Sucker Punch will have Reggie come back. I hope they don't, because that would be stupid and cheap, as well as it would be the exact same plot twist as like how John came back when he died in the first Infamous, and then, oh, I'm back, I'm a conduit now. Like, that was a good twist in the first Infamous, I might add, for different reasons than if Reggie came back, but they would be doing that same plotline again. And in Second Son, they already reused plotlines too much, such as Augustine letting conduits break out so that she could be in power, which was just like Bertrand making swamp monsters and making them look like the bad guys so that he could be in power. And a few other plotlines that Second Son just straight up copied, but anyways, that's that. So I will now tell you my idea for the story for the sequel of Second Son, which is probably what you've been waiting for all this time. So the main problems with Second Son that we need to fix is the story was rushed and simple, there was no connection to the previous games. There was a little bit, but barely any. There was not enough powers, there was repetitive gameplay, and there was a very weak morality system. So, my game idea is called Infamous Second Age. I don't think that is the best title for it, but it's just the best one I came up with. So I think Sucker Punch could definitely come up with something better if they put more time into it. But yes, Infamous Second Age. That is because at the end of Second Son, Delsin says that he is kicking off the Second Age, and Second Age is capitalized, as if it is a, like, official title of something. So that made me think, that could possibly be the next game's name. Because so far, all of these games taking place after Infamous 2 have like first or second in their name, so I would think that they will stick with that subtitling. And then for the logo, I have it in red splattered blood instead of yellow spray paint splattered stuff, which should emphasize that this game would be a lot darker than Second Son, and it would be going back to the tone of the first Infamous game and somewhat in the second Infamous game, because that's what makes Infamous's story better. And if you are wondering why Second Age, because you would have thought Second Son is also part of the Second Age, well, at the end of Second Son, Delsin says he's kicking off the Second Age, which means it's basically starting after Second Son, as well as Second Son, as Sucker Punch says, is an origin story. It's the origin of the Second Age. It's not really the Second Age itself, to say. Anyways, I'll shut up about stupid stuff. Here's my idea for the story, and here is how the game starts. Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene go to Curtain K to break out all of the conduits. Also, I'm not sure, but maybe you choose to continue from good or evil, but I think it could really work either way. Just don't have the tribe, Hank, or Augustine in the game, and it doesn't matter what you chose in the first game, really. Anyway, so Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene are at Curtain K breaking out the conduits. Delsin takes the power of the nearest conduit first, and this conduit's memories reveal new information about Celia and her plans. When Delsin wakes up, the conduit is brutally killed by the military who have arrived at Curtain K, and Fetch rescues Delsin before they kill him too. The new power that Delsin got from the conduit is glass, and I am going to talk about the powers of like the gameplay of them later, so I won't explain what the glass power does right now. Anyways, Delsin has to find core relays all over Curtain K so that he can get the powers and then get back to using his powers. This is similar to Ian's idea, which he says in this video. Click the video thumbnail to go watch it. So it's similar to Ian's idea that Delsin gets Celia's paper power at the start, and you start by using a new power so that new players and people who played Second Son get to do something new. I liked his idea, except I don't think for my story and whatnot that it should be Celia's power. Celia is not at Curtain K in my story. Anyways, you obviously play as Delsin and fight the military with the glass power. Every conduit in Curtain K is running to get out as fast as they can while fighting the military. But then once they get outside, something weird happens. The military suddenly retreats. All of them leave. They just go away. And Zeke arrives in a helicopter. He tells Delsin that he needs to leave right now because the government is about to nuke Curtain K, which is why all of the military suddenly left. So Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene get in the helicopter and get away as fast as they can. Curtain K gets nuked. Some of the conduits that got out die in the nuke, and other ones are able to get away. So after escaping, Zeke explains what is going on. More specifically, my idea is that the nuke would turn the whole screen white, then the game's logo flashes up on screen, and then there is a comic cutscene of Delsin explaining what happened in the first game briefly, and then saying Zeke has this plan to do this stuff that I'm about to tell you guys what it is. Okay, so Zeke has this network of people that he met online, and they are all working to make a better future for conduits and humans to live together. And one of these people works in the military and is the person who told Zeke that the government was going to nuke Curtain K. And this person has also informed him that something big is going down in New Empire City that will determine the future of conduits and the world. So, Zeke, Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene go to New Empire City. Empire City was the first city destroyed by the Beast, and thus the government thought that it should be rebuilt, and rebuilt much nicer, that it should be a thriving city, and that New Empire City would be a symbol of humanity's triumph over the Beast. Of course, that's not the real reason. The real reason is to cover up the government's continuation of the First Sons' work. The government working with the First Sons was somewhat explored in the infamous comic, which I finally read, by the way, but in the games, it was never really explained what ends up happening with that. And there are some dead drops where John says that he suspects this is happening, that the First Sons are working with the government, and there's a big conspiracy and John doesn't know what's going on.
Been spending a lot of time thinking about what's happened here. The CDC suddenly getting military units, FEMA acting like a law enforcement agency. No word at all from anyone in the NSA. And God knows what the FBI is doing. Seems like someone is setting the stage for a fundamental shift in the way this country works and who runs it. If we don't destroy the race sphere, there could be people like Cole everywhere. And who would stop them? Nobody. It's like they want the disease to take hold. There are no efforts to study it. You know what? I believe they knew this would happen. The race sphere, the disease, all of it. They had a blockade around the whole city almost before the dust had cleared. This points to a massive conspiracy. What if the NSA and the First Sons are working together?
So, what we do find out in the comic is that Moya worked with Kessler, and that she gave First Sons documents to the government. We also know from Cole's legacy in Second Son that Augustine somehow got Dr. Wolf's notes and used them in the DUP's Australian facility.
The events here in Seattle will ensure the DUP will be funded for the foreseeable future. This will allow me to expand our facilities abroad. We have made excellent headway on establishing a permanent science facility in Australia. The work we've already done there using Dr. Sebastian Wolf's notes on the conduit is, well, awe-inspiring. Even to me.
Also, from this infamous 2 dead drop, we can tell that it was Wolf's ideas that were used to make the conduit hand scanners.
I thought perhaps you could whip up some kind of conduit radar, something of that nature. Does this take precedence over the 5 other projects you have me working on? No, damn it! You finish those other things first. But the conduit detector, put it on the list.
So, in my story, and I will go into this a little bit more later, the government has continued the First Sons, and the First Sons are basically a branch of the government that is just kept secret from normal people. And they have Dr. Wolf's notes and Kessler's notes. They have everything. And for the past 7 years, they have been working on new technologies, and some of those technologies are the ones that the DUP has been using. So I will talk more about the First Son's involvement in the story a little bit later. But for now, back to New Empire. So, New Empire City was built on top of the old destroyed Empire City, where a massive underground First Sons research lab was constructed. New Empire is a futuristic, thriving utopia due to the First Sons technologies used in it. It is also heavily secured and monitored, which could tie into the themes that I think Nate Fox wanted to put in Second Son, but really didn't have enough time to write a compelling story to do that.
Our security comes at a high price. Our freedom. Now, picture how things would change, how the world would react if a handful of people suddenly developed superhuman abilities, capable of unleashing incredible carnage without ever pulling a trigger or lighting a fuse. These people would be living, breathing weapons that could pass through any metal detector or X-ray scanner or even a strip search completely undetectable. We already live in a culture of fear. Picture how things would change. How much control would any of us have over our own lives? And which of us would have the courage to fight to get our freedoms back?
And when I say that New Empire is a futuristic utopia, it's not like this kind of futuristic, or this kind of futuristic. It's more of a mix between this and how Empire City used to be. But it is a thriving city that contains mostly rich people living there. Okay, now to mention a very important character behind the new First Sons stuff and New Empire City. This is a new character that I have made up. I don't have a good name for this character. I'm bad at naming anything. I'm surprised I came up with the infamous Second Age name, and that's not even that good. So anyways, the temporary name I'm giving this character until I think of something not stupid is Dr. Adam. Alright, just bear with me. I know the name sounds kinda dumb. Anyways, so the new leader of the First Sons is Dr. Adam. He became their leader sometime after the RFI was activated. And Dr. Adam is a conduit who is activated by the Beast, similarly to how Augustine was, and he survived the RFI's killing of some conduits. Before being activated, Dr. Adam was a brilliant scientist, and after being activated, the government saw him as an opportunity to lead their conduit research and continue the work of the First Sons. What he saw around him when he was activated has motivated him to want to put an end to conduits, or at least make them less dangerous. His power helped him greatly in his field. It is the atomic power. I will briefly explain what this is without explaining what the power is like in gameplay. Basically, you can control the tiny vibrations in atoms and molecules, and you can use that to cool things down, to heat things up, or to make sonic boom sound waves and a few other things that have to do with vibrating molecules and whatnot. Anyway, so that helped him with his science research and making sciencey science things, and he is the main reason that the First Sons have thrived in this new era. He is also the reason why New Empire City is a thriving utopia with futuristic technology. He is known to the public as a great man who brought new life to the dead Empire City. They do not know that he is a conduit, or that he is working for the First Sons, obviously, because normal people don't know about the First Sons. And lately, he has been working on building anti-conduit weaponry as tension between conduits grows after the incident in Seattle, and now the one in Curtin K. The incident in Seattle I'm talking about is Second Son, if you hadn't guessed for some reason. So something that I want to bring up that has to do with technology in the infamous universe is the RFI. I want to talk about what I think the RFI did. So, what the RFI was supposed to do is kill all conduits and conduit positives in the world. That means anyone with the conduit gene dies. And it was supposed to cure the plague for all normal people who had it. Which it did that, but quite clearly it did not kill all conduits. Now, my friend Alex has a theory as to why this happened, and you can go watch his video of him explaining it in detail if you want, but the basics are that because Zeke broke the RFI while Cole was trying to use it the first time, it malfunctioned and did not kill all conduits like it was supposed to. I think that might be somewhat true, maybe entirely true, but also if you listen to this dead drop in Infamous 2, then you can tell that Dr. Wolf, the guy who made the RFI, he is not even certain that it will work, or work to do what he wants.
His resources allowed me to finish the RFI. That is all that matters. My God, I hope it works. I hope it exceeds my wildest expectations and put an end to the plague.
So maybe it was Zeke breaking it, maybe it was Wolf just not even knowing what it would do because he didn't really have a way to test it. But for whatever reason, or a combination of those reasons, the RFI didn't work like it was supposed to. Now, something that's weird in the opening crawl of Second Son and First Light is it says that 7 years ago, a new group of people called Conduits emerged. 7 years ago, obviously being right after the Beast was killed by the RFI. Now, this always sounded weird to me because conduits have been around, as far as we know, forever. So it's not like 7 years ago was the first time there was ever conduits. What I think this means is that 7 years ago, something was dramatically changed with the conduit gene to make conduits different from how they were before. And I think this must have been caused by the RFI. So the RFI obviously randomly killed conduits, but I think it also activated all conduit positives who survived it. Or maybe not directly activated them, but changed their conduit gene in some way to make them activate within the next 1 to 3 years. Because Fetch was never activated, Eugene was never activated, and I'm talking about like activated by something like a ray sphere, or something happened where there was a transfer of neuroelectricity. That never happened. They just somehow had their powers, and they just naturally unlocked and were activated. I think this is a cause of the RFI, and that it activated basically all conduit positives within 3 years of the RFI being activated. And my friend Ian recently made a video where he thought that Delsin was activated by touching Hank, and like Hank's conduit bioelectricity went into Delsin, but Hank didn't die from it because he was healed faster. And I disagree with Ian's theory because I think Delsin had already been activated years before. He had just never come in contact with the conduit. And his power that was activated was his power to absorb other conduits' powers. So he just didn't know he had it, because he had never touched some conduit's arm or whatever. Also, something that I think is quite weird is that in Cole's Legacy, it is sort of implied that the government has found a way to turn people who do not have the conduit gene, normal people, into conduit positives and give them powers, and that's what might have been done to at least some of the DUP soldiers who have the concrete power.
The reports my editor and I were getting was that the DUP had a hand in the mass spread of the conduit gene over the last 5 to 6 years. I believe that they somehow figured out what was making the conduits return, and they figured out how to harness or capture it and bend it to their will. Thus, all the DUP-sanctioned conduits you see today.
So that's an interesting conspiracy right there, and that does not specifically tie into the story that I have created so far, but maybe in the future as I develop it more, it will. Okay, so that's the RFI conspiracy. Now it's time to talk about what the ending of the Paper Trail comic means. Go watch Ian's video on it. I probably already linked it or something. But basically, the comic's ending is symbolizing Celia becoming the new leader of the DUP and using the DUP to fight back against what I believe to be any normal humans who don't want conduits. So that's the military or anyone else. Also, I know that in my old video where I talked about what would make the next game good, I said that there shouldn't be the conduit racism theme anymore. Well, the way the story is right now, you can't really not have it. So I just say do it well, do it ways they haven't done it before, and try to make it interesting and not cheesy. So Ian's idea for this next game, which you can watch in this video here, which I've probably linked before already, is that the main conflict is Celia's DUP versus the US military. That is very similar to the conflict in my story idea, and it's only slightly different. Part of it has to do with karma and choices, because in Ian's version, the good choice is to join Celia and get her to not use conduits to hurt people who don't like them. And the evil choice is to join the military and make them promise that they will take all of the conduits to Delsin so he can get all their powers. That's going to be slightly different to mine because of how I'm changing the karma system, but I'll talk about that after I talk about my main ideas on Celia's DUP. So the reason that Celia was not at Curtin K, or why she wasn't freeing them herself, is she went to the DUP's Australia base to make plans, gather technology they might need, and any conduits that were there. And also one option that I'm not entirely sure on yet is that before this game starts, Zeke also went to Australia. Not sure about that, but maybe. So when Delsin first gets to New Empire City, it is peaceful and there are no enemies, but once the story really starts to pick up, the military shows up, starts fighting Delsin Fetch and Eugene, and then soon afterward, Celia and her new DUP conduit army show up and start fighting the military. And New Empire City goes from being a shining, beautiful, thriving utopia into being a dark, gritty, destroyed version of that city. The government is able to evacuate some people, but the rest of them that didn't get out in time, well, just like we know the government loves to do in these games, they set up a quarantine and some people get stuck in it again. So after a few days, the Conduit Army has dominated the military, who are just failing dramatically. And if you're wondering why the government doesn't just nuke New Empire City, it's not because some civilians are still trapped in there. They wouldn't care, as they've shown in previous games. It's because their massive First Sons lab is underground there, and they don't want to damage it. So once it seems like the Conduit Army has won, the playing field is leveled. The First Sons military shows up. These are military soldiers and units that have anti-conduit weaponry and armor, and are basically an equal match to conduits. And one idea that I have here is that at this point in the game, Zeke comes up with some sort of technology that gives Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene health upgrades so that these new enemies aren't way harder in the game and there is a huge difficulty spike or something like that, because that would just not flow well. And speaking of Zeke, Zeke is basically just trying to figure out what's the best way to solve this conflict, which has gotten way out of hand. No side wants to back down, and his dreams of living in a world where conduits and humans live in peace is not very likely at this point. And over the past 7 years, Zeke has gotten better at understanding how, conduit type of technology works. And he is able to, make upgrades and cool things for Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene. Mostly Delsin, because you play as him. But yes, and then other characters in the game. Fetch, who I obviously mentioned and haven't said much about her. She could be Delsin's love interest, but that could change depending on what choices you make in the game. And Eugene definitely needs to be a better character than before. Something that I don't like in Second Son, which I've mentioned in previous videos, is how Eugene is just a stereotypical gamer, and a negatively stereotyped gamer, which is very odd when Sucker Punch's target audience is gamers, because they're making a video game. Not only is it their target audience, it is just their audience. So I thought that was weird. the main reason Eugene is so shy and hiding was because he was tortured for years by Augustine. Not because he's a gamer, but Sucker Punch did a horrible job of explaining that and made it seem like it was because he was a gamer. So anyways, in this game, focus on him being scared and socially awkward and whatnot because of what Augustine put him through. And in this game, one of the sort of story themes that will go on is a theme of loss of loved ones. Delsin is still trying to cope with the loss of Reggie, and he can talk about it some with Fetch and Zeke. Fetch who lost Brent, and Zeke who lost Cole. And something that I have not come up with for my story yet is there definitely needs to be more human characters, because right now Zeke is like my only human character, and by that I just mean normal human, non-conduit character. Because you need to feel this conflict on both sides, not just a ton of conduits and then Zeke, who is a person who is very much for conduit rights. Like, you need a lot of normal people opinions thrown in there too. Okay, now we talk about choices and karma and whatnot. So as I said in my previous video talking about what I want for the next Infamous game, story choices are no longer broken down as good or evil, and the story is now branching and can end in many ways. There is gray morality, so there's no more save the puppies or drown them. The main two paths, just like in Ian's idea, are joining Celia's DUP conduit army, or joining the First Sons in this case, because that's basically the other side, since the military cannot hold their own against conduits. So those are the main two paths, is joining one of those factions, but there are alterations beyond that. You can make that faction do something you want more instead of exactly what they want, and try to lead to a better resolution to this conflict. And there are other factors that can make endings different, such as like different combinations of characters can die. Sort of like in Until Dawn, which is a horror game where based on your choices, anywhere from all of the characters to none of the characters can die in that game. And in general, there are more choices in the story. Not all of them are like completely plot altering, but there are definitely more choices than in Second Son, which had 5 story choices. And there are also once in a while dialogue options. It's not something that's in the game as much as it is in like Fallout or something, but every once in a while there's dialogue options. You are maybe wondering, why would Delsin want to join the First Sons if they are working to basically kill all conduits? Well, this audio log from Second Son explains the reasoning.
The crazier this city gets, the more it just proves Augustine was right. Conduits and humans can't live together. We're too different. Too dangerous. I mean, think about it from their side. Humans have a bad day, they might punch a hole in the wall or crash their car. Conduits have a bad day and the body count is in double digits. Conduits are in a completely different weight class than humans.
Also, if you are wondering about Dr. Adam, how he can be a conduit who wants to end conduits and stuff, it is intentionally ironic that he is a conduit who is able to use his power for good, yet he wants to stop conduits because he does not believe they can use their power for good, basically. And if you're wondering why on my little poster thumbnail thing, Dr. Adam is just a shadow, it's because I don't know what he looks like, so I just got some random silhouette. So one thing you guys might not be expecting me to say based on what I said in that other video is old karma still exists. Yeah, that's right, except for now it is not related to the story, and it is basically just a meter that is your standing with the people of New Empire, whether they like you or don't like you, and how they react based on that. That part of karma has not changed. Also, this does control the color of your powers and like how Delsin looks and stuff, and it makes you good and evil. I just didn't want story choices to be tied down by good or evil, or oh no, if I make this choice in the story, I'll lose all my upgrades and stuff. There is leveling up separate from karma levels for upgrades also. But with karma, you can get bonus upgrades for being all the way evil or all the way good. which is something that story choices will not affect. So you will never have to worry about losing your evil or good karma upgrades. Well, that is, unless you're a good guy and you start suddenly killing all the civilians wandering around. And not only is the old karma meter in it as a standing meter with you and the civilians, but there are also other standing meters, such as your standing with the First Sons, your standing with Celia's DUP, your standing with Zeke, with Fetch, Eugene, and it's very similar to karma. It's just, does this character or group of characters like you or not like you? And that does change based on your choices in the story, and different things in the story can happen if certain characters really like you or really hate you. And one idea that I have is that maybe Fetch wants you to join Celia and Eugene wants you to join Adam. So if you do the opposite thing, that conduit won't like you, and maybe at some point in the game you might even have to fight them, and maybe even have to kill them. And it would be really sad, especially if it was Fetch. So it is a very, very unstable plot that could quite literally go in many directions, and there is no way to continue this story in a sequel unless they choose one ending to be canon, which, like I said in my other video, I think is more important to make a good game right now than to worry about making a second good game later.